Pedro finally opens the door, only to be surprised by Mirabel's presence, with Mirabel being surprised to see that he looks exactly like his old portrait, only he's a skeleton rather than being fully human. He welcomes her and the others into his house and gives them a small tour around the place before bringing them to the rooftop where they get to see the beautiful view of the land of the dead in its full glory. However, things get rather tricky when Mirabelle decides that she doesn't want to leave the afterlife anymore, as she finds it too beautiful and amazing to leave. Well, that and the fact that people are much friendlier to her compared to the Encanto also ends up reinforcing her decision to stay in the land of the dead. And the chapter ends with Mirabelle declaring her intention to stay in the land of the dead forever with her grandfather, which horrifies Pedro and the others, as this was not what they intended for at all. When the others try to discourage her from basically killing herself by staying in the afterlife forever, Mirabelle retorts over how miserable her original life was back in the Encanto and how, unlike the afterlife, almost nobody wanted her around, nor did they really like her. When asked by Imelda on why, Mirabelle tells everyone the story about how she never received a magical gift like her family and how it eventually led to her running away. The others are shocked and horrified to hear about all the suffering Mirabel went through, with Imelda and Juanita being especially incensed over Alma's mistreatment of her own granddaughter, while Pedro is disappointed over how his family had changed for the worst. He reveals to Mirabel that he became aware of the negative changes in both Alma and the Madrigals, as he would visit the Encanto every year for Dia de los Muertos. When he saw what happened to both Mirabel and Bruno especially, he was heartbroken, while also being incredibly disappointed in the rest of the family for the way they treated them. The fact that he couldn't interact with them due to being dead didn't make the situation any better, as he was forced to watch as his family's issues grew worse over the years. When Mirabelle explains over how she can't go back home due to her fears of being rejected and treated even worse by the others, Pedro cheers her up by singing the song Dos Oruguitas, which is revealed to be a song that he created for Alma and his children as a lullaby for them. He then reveals the true circumstances behind his death, involving his hometown, or rather his old hometown known as Macondo, and how it was destroyed along with everyone he knew and loved thanks to a group of rogue guerrilla soldiers who raided and burned down the place for political reasons. As a result, he and his wife, along with their children and fellow survivors, were forced to leave, but were soon caught by the soldiers that were determined to kill them all, despite them being vulnerable and defenseless. And even though Pedro tried to plead with said soldiers to not hurt anyone, they cut him down without mercy before going straight for the others. He then ends his tale with him passing out right when the magic appeared to save his family before waking up in the land of the dead. Once Pedro finishes his dark yet tragic tale, the others are left speechless, with Mirabel being the most shocked, as not even her grandmother told her about that part, as her grandmother tended to avoid giving too many details, or at least she didn't want to tell Mirabel and the others about the darker details of her grandfather's death due to how traumatic and violent it was. Though Mirabel is still unwilling to forgive her grandmother and her family for the way they treated her, she comes to understand her grandmother more, at least, though she is still justifiably angry at her for her mistreatment. And though Pedro understands that it will take a long time for Mirabel to forgive her family, he encourages her to not be so downhearted over her lack of gift, as he insists that she is still special, as she is the true miracle of the family, despite not having a gift. Though Mirabel doubts that she can even be called a miracle due to what happened to the casita as well as the candle, she gets interrupted by a feminine voice who speaks to her and reveals herself in the form of a glowing ball of light. And the chapter ends with the mysterious new entity introducing herself to everyone as the spirit, and thus the true source of the magic that created both the casita and the Encanto, as well as being the one who gave the madrigals their magical gifts in the first place.